The Gross Clinic by Thomas Eakins is a surgical painting made in the American realist style. This painting, despite its controversy, would pave the way to American realism and art. But first we must talk about the artist himself, Thomas Eakins. Thomas Eakins is an American realist painter. Eakins studied at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. While attending the academy, he would also frequent lectures at Jefferson Medical College. This is where his love of depicting the human body began. Later in his life, he would work as a professor at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, where he once studied. He worked there from 1879 to 1886. He made some of his best works of art while working at the academy. Often, Eakins would use his students as models in his art. For Eakins, it was common for his models to pose nude, but this caused some controversy in his professional life. The Academy became suspicious of Eakins' relationship with his students, so he was forced to resign. Thomas Eakins passed away in 1916 after 71 years of life. As mentioned before, Thomas Eakins was an American realist. American realism can be described as realism with elements of American culture. A really good example of an American realist painting would be Thomas Eakins' painting, Taking the Count. This painting consists of two boxers with a ref in the middle. One is clearly the winner as he stands tall on the left, and the loser is crouched on the right. The element of boxing comes from American culture as it really got popular in the 1800s when the painting was made. American realist paintings usually have elements such as main male characters, everyday settings, ordinary events, and a clear objective. We can see these elements all throughout Eakins' work. For example, in the Gross Clinic itself, the main character is Dr. Gross, and the ordinary event would be the college lecture. Thomas Eakins made various paintings in his career. Some of his biggest are the swimming hole and the Agnew Clinic. The swimming hole was a painting of naked male figures swimming in a lake next to a fallen tree. This piece was one of Thomas Eakins' more controversial artworks because the men in the painting were actually his students. He had his students actually swim nude in the lake for a reference. This event is what ended his career at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. Another of his paintings is the Agnew Clinic, which was very similar to the Gross Clinic. The Agnew Clinic is a painting of Dr. Agnew lecturing his students as a live surgery is being performed to the left of him by what we can only assume is some of his students. This painting was not considered controversial in comparison to the Gross Clinic because the Agnew Clinic did not have the same amount of raw clinical surgery and gruesomeness. Now it is time we talk about the Gross Clinic itself. The Gross Clinic is a painting of Dr. Samuel D. Gross lecturing while a live surgery is being performed to his right. The patient is being operated on by some of Dr. Gross's students. The patient is placed in a very uncomfortable position as they prod in the open wound on his left thigh. To the left of Thomas Eakins, there is a woman cowering in fear from the graphic clinical nature of the surgery. Some sources say that it was the patient's mother. The setting of the painting is Thomas Jefferson University in an auditorium with a class full of students. At the time, performing a live surgery in front of a large audience was completely normal and was done quite often. This is so the students can have a hands-on experience with surgery, because hearing lectures about it is not the same as seeing a medical procedure. The act of performing a live surgery for learning purposes is still done to this day. The main male character in the painting is Dr. Samuel D. Gross. Dr. Gross is a highly admired educator and surgeon at Thomas Jefferson University and throughout the United States. He was often referred to as the Emperor of American Surgery. He innovated many surgical techniques and instruments that are still commonly used today. The surgery that is being performed in the painting is a new technique made to treat an infected bone that was created by Dr. Gross. Thomas Eakins wanted the Gross Clinic to be his masterpiece. Eakins spent nearly a year on the painting. He created the painting with the goal of having it displayed at the Centennial Exhibition of 1876. He planned for the Gross Clinic to be the most distinguished and best of all of his work. Though it was rejected from the art gallery, The painting was showed on the Centennial grounds at an exhibit at a U.S. Army post hospital. The Gross Clinic ended up being one of the most controversial pieces of art for Thomas Eakins. The clinical, bloody nature of the painting was at fault for the controversy. Depicting surgery is not new to the art world. Paintings like the anatomy lesson of Dr. Nicolaas Tulp, created by Rembrandt, is just one example, and a very visual one at that. The controversy around the Gross Clinic comes from the bloody open surgical wound. This is different from the anatomy lesson of Dr. Nicolaas Tulp because of the amount of blood in the painting. At the time, realism consisted of paintings such as The Desperate Man by Gustave Courbet. So when people were presented with the Gross Clinic, they were horrified. In this time, seeing the raw clinical scene was considered scary. Critics deemed the painting to be too gruesome and bloody. The students operating on the body had bloody hands and tools prodding around inside the open gash, so gruesome does not even begin to cover it. The painting was rejected for its original intention, but was later put on display at an exhibit at the U.S. Army Post Hospital. Thomas Eakins wanted the Gross Clinic to be the crown jewel of his work. Although it was rejected at the time, he definitely succeeded. He brought a whole new type of art to the art world, that being American realism. Without the Gross Clinic, Eakins may not have gotten the same press or attention to his work. The controversial nature of his art brought attention to American realism. The attention American realism got inspired painters like Edward Hopper, one of the greatest American painters of the 20th century. Even though the controversy was warranted, without this piece, American realism probably would not have made the same mark on the art world as it did. Thomas Eakins is still considered one of the fathers of American realism, and a good part of his legacy is in thanks to the Gross Clinic.